more now on what China's visa-free policy could mean for the global travel industry, I have with me Jonathan Kao, Managing Director for North Asia at BCD Travel. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm wondering, can you tell us, what do you think China's motivation is for expanding its visa-free entry program to an increasing number of countries, the 6 newest ones that we just mentioned?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of primary reasons. So first one is to reestablish China as a accessible and attractive destination for both tourists and also business travelers. So after the couple of years of travel restrictions during the pandemic, there is a lot of changes happening. So I think one of the reasons that and motivation behind the visa-free policy is to encourage people to come again, and also making it easy and lowering the barrier of entry for coming to China.
And if that transpires and there is actually an influx of people, how much of a boon do you think this is to the travel industry, both in China and globally from an economic standpoint?
So I think it is important, China being one of the global economy, and we're seeing a lot more travelers now either already come to China and also making plans to come to China. We're seeing a lot of, especially for the business travel segment, we see that because the nature of the business travel is very last minute, and also for attending international conferences and exhibitions that are happening in China. So we're seeing a lot growth, and deals are being made, and new business plans. So I think it is very encouraging to see this, and China positioning itself as welcoming for international business and tourists.
Official figures show that entries and exit to China by foreign nationals in 2023 was still only about 36% of the level it was in 2019. Why do you think it's been so slow to bounce back?
Yeah, so I think the effects of the pandemic cannot be underestimated, and also a lot of the global logistics and travel patterns have changed in the past few years. Just an example, we look at the flight capacity to and from international flight capacity to and from China. It is still not 100% recovered. We're only at about 70%. And flights especially between US and China, were only at about 30%, less than 30%. But we did have some good news where both governments have agreed to increase flights starting next month. So we'll see a slow recovery. But I think the visa-free policy is definitely a great step towards that direction. And tourists and business travel.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I think that it is very important to point out that, travels and flights have been so restricted. It takes so much longer. It's much harder to get to, a country like China from, particularly, let's say, in the US or the UK. But I'm wondering, from your own experience, sir, when people do come to China, where are the destinations that they tend to frequent the most? Are there particular cities that they want to see?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the nature of the travel. For business travelers, it's mainly still Shanghai, Beijing, and Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, and some of the new and large cities like Chengdu and Hangzhou. For tourists, a lot of the travelers would like to visit all of China, especially, I think, places with historic importance like Beijing and Xi'an, and Yunnan is very nice for the nature, and Sichuan province is also very popular. So we're seeing a wide variety of attractions for the global tourists.
And, China relaxing some of their visa requirements, but several countries in Asia have loosened their visa restrictions for Chinese visitors as well. What benefit could it bring these countries? How does it affect cross-border travel, in your opinion?
That's correct. So I think it's a very smart strategy. We're seeing that happening across Asia, Southeast Asia. And so I think the main motivation is definitely to attract Chinese tourists coming out of China. And with the Chinese tourists being known with high spending power, it would be beneficial to the receiving country's economy. So I think that is the main motivation behind it. And also in terms of business travelers, to make deals happening and also foster diplomatic relations and business relations.
And, given that China has such a large population and has been slower to open up after the pandemic, is over-tourism, do you think, in Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore a concern? How do you entice visitors to, let's say, come to China instead of those countries?
Yeah, so I think it is certainly a concern for a lot of countries when they're receiving a large number of travelers. I think the receiving governments, again, they have to balance the economic benefits and also their longer and shorter term of strategy of tourism by providing investments and planning so that the travelers coming to their countries will have a good experience, and also the local population will not be affected. So we always see a lot of traffic congestions around tourist destinations and crowded public transportations. So I think these are the things that governments have to take into account when they plan for the inbound tourism.
And do you think that more Americans will visit Asia and China because of these visa requirements now in place for them to enter some of these other European countries being affected?
Yeah, so I think definitely. So we're already seeing the numbers reflecting that more international travelers coming to China, and I think it will slowly recover as well towards the summertime, where it is a traditionally high season for international leisure travelers. But I think the other thing we need to be mindful is the policy. It's a temporary policy, so it would be interesting to see the government, if all the governments will extend this policy into later into next year.
I'm sure many people would appreciate that. We will have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Jonathan Kao.
Thank you.
And that is it for this edition of On the Move, but check out our other special content on our website, cgtn.com.